This is one of my favorite monologues this season. Finally we get the message from the writers that Emily will continue to take revenge. Maybe not in the same fashion as usual, but for me it was entertaining enough seeing her fight with Daniel. I know many do not like the following episodes because of its soapy character. But that is the reason why I love to watch these episodes so much. I mean, after all Daniel has done since the wedding, is it not natural for Emily wanting to take revenge on him, too? In some kind he destroyed her life by robbing her the opportunity to have a normal life with kids. So she will never forget what the Graysons, and in this case Daniel himself, took from her. Not only her childhood but her happy future, too, and since she pushed Aiden away she has no one left who would talk some sense into her. I know that is still Nolan's role, but as we will see in the next couple of episodes he is very much overwhelmed by this, pretty much like in Season 1 when he was just getting to know Emily and her revengenda. And I love the realism in this and the scene with Niko. As I said before, it is kind of refreshing to see that Emily is no superhero and can be hurt, even physical, and that she obviously needs time to recover completely. Though they throw all authenticity out of the window with Emily's request to burn her wound out. Till now this was the lowest scene, and I must give the actress who portrays Niko and Emily give credit for not ruining the scene. Must have been hard to keep a straight face with this. I love how they bond in this scene. As I said in the last episode, one wished we had seen more of Emily and Niko instead of the stereotype with her and Aiden. They could have really opened up a nice story arc for Niko. And she could have been a true ally even more, as she has a natural relationship to Emily by being the daughter of her mentor Takeda. But I love her quote in this scene. Makes it clear why she hates Daniel that much. I think they covered her strange love-hate relationship with both Graysons very well in the last 2 seasons. Daniel and Victoria are since Season 1 the main focus of Emily for very personal reasons, even though her main target should have always been Conrad since he executed Victoria's plan to frame her father David Clarke. But I guess Takeda was right from the start that her emotions destined her to fail, since she never could put him aside completely, either with Daniel or Victoria. If you look from Daniel's perspective, Emily might deserved her pain cause she made him lose Sara and inflicted so much to him with her pregnancy lie. I assume they just searched an elegant way for her hate to come back in order to give her a reason to stay. Instead of walking away from the Graysons and all the painful memories, since that would have been a healthy, reasonable and surely the right decision if you think about how her future life with Aiden went down. About Nolan's revenge on Patrick. That was an understandable but low move for Nolan. I can relate to his hatred and disappointment because Patrick not only deceived him, he assaulted him and made it impossible for Nolan to ever trust him again. I do not know if Nolan planned to reconcile with him, but after this I think he finally has enough of Patrick. And that is when his storyline went down, cause like with Daniel and Charlotte, always when Victoria regains full control and influence on the life of her children, their behavior and future gets worse. Though I hate that Nolan draws conclusions between Patrick being adopted and his violent behavior, he might have a point. Patrick is so eager to please his newfound biological mother and repair their relationship that he does everything for her. It really casts an eye-opening light on Victoria. I think he becomes merely a tool for her, and it is clear that he is a victim, too, on the long list of the people Victoria used for her advantage. Anyway, I think Nolan did not know here what time bomb he planted with revealing the identity of Patrick's biological father. And since neither he nor Emily knew about the backstory Victoria told Patrick later, there are only 2 explanations. First, and the most obvious one, Victoria lied again like she did in Season 1 with David. Second, since she did not accuse him personally or inform the police, that is something only Victoria and Patrick's father could know. I myself prefer the first one since Victoria is sure as hell no reliable source. But we will talk about it more when we get to the scene in which she talks with Patrick about this. For now we just know that Patrick has the chance to get to know his father and are still clueless why Victoria is making such a big secret about him, about Emily's mind games. Besides her war against Daniel, I was very much disappointed about how she handled Victoria and Conrad. I guess they wanted to underline how shattered she is. Seeing Victoria's therapist to get information is something she already did in Season 1 with Michelle Banks. Maybe it was another tribute to Season 1, but this one seems to go nowhere, since Michelle was a target because she kept Amanda away from her dad and brainwashed her to believe her father was actually a terrorist. Besides Daniel, Sara and the other Graysons, they give us no new targets in these couple of episodes. Like I said, it is obvious that her mental state is very fragile, and more than ever Emily sees only her hate for the Graysons, so I cannot buy her statement later that she fights to get Daniel back. This time she really just wants to hurt him and ruin his life out of hate and maybe jealousy, cause he seems to be happy with Sara while Emily lost Aiden and their future together. About Emily and Conrad, I know he will be her main focus in the second half of the season. But I think the writers missed again an opportunity here. Him and Emily working together to destroy his son Daniel would have been an intriguing story arc, even more as both have enough reasons to see Daniel suffer. Emily because of his behavior towards her and the shooting. Conrad because by protecting his son he lost Lydia and a fulfilling future without Victoria. On the plus side for both, with going after Daniel they would also hurt Victoria. So it was a big disappointment for me that the writers were just toying with us by pursuing this new alliance only halfway, and using it as a first clue for her blackout. About Emily waking Daniel with Sara, and this one could have been the last drip to pull Emily over the edge. Letting her court him and Sara in act willfully was really despicable for Daniel. In this season, and for the first time, he seems to hate her as much as she does hate him, so it was fun to watch how both try to make each other's life hell in order to destroy this marriage completely. What was disappointing for me to watch that Daniel is only using Sara in this war. If he would really love her he would not have put her on display like this. He should have known better, since Emily now would go after Sara. And like Victoria later points out, she is a soft target. Emily will have no problem to crush her, as we see later. And what disappointed me even more is that Sara willingly plays her role. I know she might be blinded by love and her old feelings for Daniel. Maybe also a little bit by the money and wealthy environment Daniel lives in, but why does she throw all her principles out the window because of Daniel? Only because he told her about Emily faking a pregnancy to make her marry him? There is still the fact that he is married to another woman, and Sara must assume that Emily is very much in love with him, cause like Daniel she does not know anything about Emily's revenge agenda, and that Daniel is only means to an end for her. She needed this wedding so much to pull through with her plan taking down the Graysons. Yet Sara must acknowledge that Emily wants Daniel and is willing to do what it takes to get her man back. So in my opinion it would have been wise to let it be and run away from Daniel, Emily and their sick relationship as far as possible, before she gets hurt like it inevitable had happened. Anyway, his quote that he slept not that much because of Sara is just so gross. And Sara's look at her, I can totally understand that all Emily sees right now is red. It is only natural that she immediately tries to dig up information that could help her get rid of Sara. It would not only hurt both people who try to humiliate and hurt her as well. And it would also take out a player who cannot be controlled by Emily and is an ally of the Graysons in a broader sense. About Emily and Sara, and now the scene which made me hate Sara. I think Emily is clear here and gives her at least a warning. Though I cannot be okay with what Emily says here to Sara, I can totally understand both sides. Sara thinks the marriage between Daniel and Emily is just a sham because of her lie to keep him by her side. In fact, it is true that he is not in love with Emily anymore and his feelings for Sara had come back. Maybe they would have worked as a pair if they had time to rediscover what they feel for each other. But Emily is right, too. Sara does not fit in at Grayson Manor. Not only because she is not rich, Sara has not a clue about how sick and dangerous these people are, including her beloved Daniel. She is just too decent and naive to take a stand against these people. She only sees the facade and seems to like the lifestyle, so that is the reason for Emily's grin. She knows she has an easy game with Sara. About Conrad's revenge on Daniel, it speaks for Emily's weakened condition that the takedown I enjoyed the most in this episode was Conrad's coup against Daniel. I would have really loved if Emily was involved, especially because in her takedown of Sara you feel sorry for her and that Emily got too far with this. About Daniel underestimating Emily, I think Victoria is finally aware of Emily's tactics and tries to understand her game. Why Daniel still thinks it all revolves around him. It must have been very eye-opening for him in the last season getting to know that he was just a pawn in Emily's game. Anyway, I still admire how elegantly the writers made us aware of Conrad's first wife. The moment Victoria talked about her here I was wondering how she was, and I must admit beside her dumb side plot with Jack, Stevie Grayson was one of my favorites new additions in season 3. But like before, we will get to that later. About Emily's and Daniel's war. This one was my favorite scene of this episode. The tension between the two and how they play around is just so great. I love those fighting scenes and I assume they had much fun with it. In this beautiful designer dress which surely cost a fortune, Emily just looks like the perfect caricature of a desperate housewife from the upper class, and using the mirror in this scene to show us Emily's perfect figure and Daniel's face was a nice idea, since Emily is showing her fake persona here again. The only difference is that Daniel finally can see through her facade. About Patrick's backstory, how Justin Hartley plays him and talks in this scene really made me root for him. It is just a shame that his story went down this path. For Victoria's character and her story arc in the last 2 seasons, it was good making him another victim of her, cause that is maybe the most consistent theme about her, that Victoria destroys the life of the people who love her, sometimes willingly, sometimes unaware of her own responsibility. For me it would have been enough trauma for him being adopted. This nagging question how his life would have been if he and his biological parents would have lived together as a happy family, but like always the writers wanted more drama and more trauma. Like in Victoria's talk with Emily an episode earlier, I would have preferred if she would have lied. Maybe her character gets more diverse because of her own trauma, but her wicked character would have come through if she had lied about both things. It would have made clear that is a strategy of her to keep people under control and by her side, and it would have shown how desperate she wants to bind Patrick closer to her and how afraid she is of losing him. So she tells him what she told Daniel in season 1. That someone raped her to evoke sympathy, yet it is just fake to keep another important person in Victoria's life from walking away from her. About Nolan and Emily, one thing I loved about her blackouts was that it gave Nolan the opportunity to care about her. In this scene we see again how close they have become, and I like his comment on Daniel that he is some kind of a hole. At first I did not understand it, but it is a great way of saying a swear word without actually telling it. Of course again because of Disney and this sick American standards. Daniel could have talk about the bitch Emily. but calling him who shot her an asshole is too much. Anyway, I like that he became really bad in this season. Firing the staff just out of a wimp was not at all a good move, and I must give Emily credit that she covers the salaries out of her own asset, or maybe from Daniel's to taunt him even more. Anyway, it shows that Emily's shopping and her attitude towards Sarah are just show, and she is far from becoming a typical high-class lady. About Emily's first blackout, I like that they are consistent with these little details, like that Emily is going to swim when she is emotionally imbalanced and needs to clear her head. One thing about how they tried to make the blackouts visible, I appreciate the idea of showing us firsthand what is going on with Emily. This sound that probably should visualize her raising heartbeat and the blurring were a nice idea, but it was annoying to watch, too. Anyway, I was happy that they did not confuse us as much as it would have been possible. Making it clear that something is not right with Emily was the far better solution than making us question all of her deeds and if she is pursuing her agenda or just doing this because of her blackout. The show is complicated enough without this kind of guessing game, and it was fitting that Aiden and Nolan were the first victims of her blackouts, because they are by far the most important people in her life. Since Nolan told her that Aiden and Niko are now a pair, her hate has a new target. This little scene was my favorite blackout, I must admit. Emily looks so fragile and her partner look with Aiden underlines that the two belong together. It was a nice distraction and change seeing her this out of control and vulnerable. In season 1 her character felt cold and bit too perfect and flawless. I know she held up a fake persona and created the perfect illusion for Daniel, but sometimes it was dull with her. In season 2 we saw the first cracks with Aiden and Formanda, and knew she seems even mortal. The only thing I hate in this scene is Aiden. He obviously wanted to keep Niko a secret even though he was back together with her. Not behind Emily's back of course, cause they had split up. But I hate that he is keeping his hopes up getting back together with Emily and clearly using Niko in the meantime. If you think about it, Aiden is really no good person. He tried to kill Victoria and Daniel in season 2 and killed at least 2 people on screen. The first one was the abductor of his sister Colleen in flashback, and the last was Padma's murder from the initiative. Maybe this is the reason why Emily and Aiden are a better match than her and Jack. Both have done horrible things to other people. The only difference is that Emily did not kill anyone yet. About Niko and Nolan, this scene was more than odd. Again they missed an opportunity to show us Niko in another light. Everything she is complaining about is true. Aiden is really rude to her. What makes it even worse is that he killed her father and she does not know that, yet Emily and Nolan do. So I can relate to her feeling betrayed. She only wanted to help Emily and Aiden and got mixed up in all this, while Niko should have taken the time to mourn her father's death. I mean, Emily's whole revenge circles around her mourning about her father, but Niko has the same wound only without the big scandal around it, and that she lost him as an adult. Still, the loss is there and hurts, and Aiden's betrayal on her is real. So instead of making her a side plot with Emily putting that evidence in her room because of her blackout, they could have written an emotional scene with the two women being betrayed by Aiden, and teaming up to go against him, cause he took Takeda from Emily, too. Instead they made her and her grief and need for revenge a joke by giving her this funny but very odd scene with Nolan. About Sarah and Daniel again. This scene was sweet and she looks gorgeous in that dress, but I cannot believe that this relationship could be more than a distraction for Daniel. Cause instead of talking with her about his problems with his dad and Margot like he would do so with Emily, he is just enjoying the moment with her and wants to take her on a holiday trip to Italy. About Victoria being raped as a teenage girl. The reason why this story had to be true was how detailed it was, and of course because of this scene, Victoria seems to be really afraid of this man, and his sentence seems to bring back the most horrible memories of her adolescence. How Madeleine Stowe is playing this, there is no doubt that she is not faking it. Like any victim who gets a flashback, she is back into these moments. That she was a victim in this young age does not erase all her ill deeds, but it surely makes her behavior more understandable. This and the more elaborate backstory of Victoria in Season 4 is maybe the most interesting story arc of Victoria. And it makes clear why Victoria is using her sexuality in the same vicious and aggressive way as Formanda did. They both were molested and had to fight to defend themselves at a very young age. I think it was around this time that Victoria just decided to be no longer a victim and they prey of other people but the predator. So she became that cruel and manipulative only to survive, and on her way she lost track of the people who were victims like her too, which she could have helped instead of putting them down. So making this story up fake or not makes Victoria really to the most intriguing and contradictive character in Revenge. I love her quote, "She did not know what to do with the truth, either to be more interesting and intriguing or to disguise her guilt." About Emily's takedown of Sara. With her backstory, it was painfully clear that Emily would use her mother to give Sara again bad conscience and try to change her behavior. And Emily sneaking around stalking them was the first hint that she is planning something. Using her mother was a no-go in my opinion. If you want to be fair, her mother is right with everything she says. At harsh daylight it looks no good how Sara is behaving with Daniel. Sara is very egoistic in her ways with Daniel, and as I said before, he has a bad influence on her. Reminds me of Rory, the main protagonist of the Gilmore Girls. As a young student she was together with her first boyfriend Dean. They broke up because she fell in love with another guy, but later when she went to college they got together again. The only thing is Dean was married at the time to a fellow high school student, which Rory knew. She stated that Dean was her man first, that he some kind belonged to her. Even though he married another woman, the same as Sara does here, telling herself Daniel belongs to her because they loved each other first and Emily only got between them. She seems to have forgotten all the things she had to endure because of Daniel and that they had good reasons to part. And by the way, I love Emily's look in this scene. She really looks great and more than ever revengey with that red lipstick and the blood-red shirt. They really underline the difference between status and class. If you look at Sara's not that special violet dress and Emily's classy casual look with the golden earrings, she looks ready to take someone down, in this case Daniel's girlfriend. And I love the actress who portrays Sara's mother. She really left an impression. I love that she is putting Daniel in his place and is not only criticizing her daughter but him, too. 'Cause he is the reason why Sara is behaving that way. And I really hate that she is defending him like he was the victim. I know she believes him obviously that he did not shot Emily. Maybe even more because Emily does not leave him. Another reason why I do not think she really wants him back. She must be afraid every time that he could lash out like this again. Losing control when he had too much to drink and tries to kill her again. I know they had not the time for this and the whole reason for this takedown was to get rid of her. But it would have been nice to see how Sara is trying to retaliate. Her deadly look would have mean no good for Emily. I guess this would have been out of character for her, so the bigger question here is how Daniel is going to react to this. One little detail I love how the camera is staying on Emily's face instead of showing us Daniel and Sara to leave. She is really enjoying this like it was one of her usual takedowns. New is only that Daniel goes all in with her game, and that was very much for me to watch. Sara is no innocent and she has done some awful things, but only out of love and because she was manipulated by Daniel. 'Cause this takedown was not as much fulfilling as anyone before. It was like with Father Paul at the beginning of the season, so admitting defeat and leaving Daniel was maybe Sara's best decision. The same goes for Father Paul, who wanted to make it right by becoming a priest after he was part of Conrad's despicable deeds, while this only fuels Daniel's hate and his need for revenge on Emily. What is good that it is her decision, not Emily's or Daniel's. Sara decides this was enough, and I love her quote, "This is not me." She is right. When she is together with Daniel, she turns into another person, someone who is less likable, compassionate and strong. So even if it hurts now, I was happy that her storyline turned out this way. About the end montage. This song is one of my favorites of Revenge, though it would have been even more fitting for the finale. Like that iconic song from Florence and the Machine for the first finale of the show, but the lyrics and the vibe of the song are just perfect for Revenge, and I love her monologue, who is even better than the one from the beginning of the episode. Fitting for the uncontrolled emotions of these two women. Emily hates Daniel as much as Niko is hating Aiden right now, and for the very same reason, their violent behavior and its consequences. Only Patrick does not really fit into this, though I like that he got his own backstory. I would have preferred if they had focused on Emily and Niko, showing us the similarities in their behavior and coping strategies, and I do not like this trope that they introduced in Season 1. When Emily burned down Mason's house and framed Formanda for it, like any adopted kid would have anger issues and would like to start fire and destroy things. Could they not find a better way to show his rage? Maybe destroying his painting? Or should it be planned in order to get his father to rebuild the gallery? For that he would not have to burn the whole place down. He could have just tempered with some of the cables or anything else. Anyway, I enjoyed the last scene cause Daniel finally showed his true face and how bad his anger issues are even when he is not drunk. Though for his redemption it would have been better if he had a couple drinks too many. Even more as he seems not to regret having Emily treated that badly. I mean, after shooting her and for a case of domestic violence he was just too tame, but his last sentence about sterilizing her as a favor to the universe was just so cruel. No wonder that her blackouts are getting worse. But it was a cheap trick again, letting her wake up in Conrad's hotel suite. This cliffhanger was merely clickbait, keeping the audience hooked and looking forward to the next episode. I myself was sure she did not sleep with Conrad, cause that was something Disney would definitely not approve. The main protagonist sleeping with her father-in-law, who is also responsible for the imprisonment and death of her father. But would have been interesting seeing her actually colluding with Conrad. Gaining his trust might have brought her more information to take him and Victoria down. Though Conrad's quote is still funny.
You were marvelous last night, Mrs. Grayson.